All right. Hello, bootstrappers.
Hello, bootstrappers.
Okay, so today what we want to talk about is how do you work with attorneys? And we're going to do it by looking at the top 5 mistakes that we've seen entrepreneurs make. And we're going to do this countdown style. So, Will, are you ready?
Absolutely.
The number 5 mistake is free flying or saying, you know what, you can handle it later, or I'm trust.
Yeah, this is almost never a good idea because you need to put things in writing. Even with just writing it down, do we understand how we're going to work together? Who's going to get what equity? And once you write it down, you might as well get a lawyer to help you work out all the details.
One of the advantages is that the attorney can at least tell you these are the things that you need to cover. So even if you decide not to go the complete formal route, you can say, okay, we at least covered the 5 or 6 boxes that are essential for us to talk about. All right, so mistake number 4, being cheap. So this covers a whole bunch of things. Grabbing documents from the internet, you don't know if they're actually going to be in your right jurisdiction or not, or picking your attorney based on like the hourly rate rather than thinking about it from your outcome. Will, what have you seen in this area?
Well, a lot of it is lawyers can charge or do charge a lot per hour, and there can be kind of a system shock. And so if you price it based on their hourly rate, you're not really thinking about the expertise and the outcome. And so if someone only charges you $20 an hour, but they take 1,000 hours to do it, it's the same thing. Or even worse, you get something that doesn't even handle the use case you have.
And a lot of times, if you look at the hourly rate, it's gotten there because they've actually focused their expertise into a particular area. So be outcome driven on what area you want to have an agreement based on, and then find an attorney and talk about it up front. Hey, we need to save money. What's the best way to do this?
Yes, work with me. How do I behave as a client so that we can get this done for the amount of money I have to spend?
Okay, so mistake number 3 is the exact opposite, overspending. And a big example here is picking a law firm based on the prestige that you think it gives you.
Yes, and I saw a lot of people in Silicon Valley make this mistake. They would go top law firm, and then we're going to show everyone these documents, and that's going to help us raise money. Or even worse, I raised the money. Now let me burn half the money I raised on filing patents or trying to get trademarks worldwide. I'm going to use the most expensive lawyer to do that, even though I'm an itty bitty startup and it makes no economic sense.
When you're an early stage startup, you've got to manage your money. You've got to manage your spend at every place you can. So be smart, do the work that you need to do. But from like a patent point of view, a lot of times it makes sense to do a provisional patent, which holds your place in line rather than going through all of the steps to get the full patent.
The thing to remember is if you overspend on something like legal work, when you run out of money, all you're going to do at night is sit in bed and think about every dollar that you spent that you wished you had now to finish up your startup.
Okay, coming in at number 2, hiring an attorney and then not listening to them. The number one way that I've seen this is actually more of selective listening, where you hire an attorney, but you've already made up your mind and you're only listening for the things that match what you believe in. And this is a crucial mistake, and you're spending money for nothing. You're wasting time, and you're not learning anything new. Attorneys are really good at seeing all of the bad things that could possibly happen.
Absolutely. It's like paying someone $500 an hour to argue with. Not very good use of money.
Okay, that sounds like it's experience. Who have you seen do that?
Our old partner, Glenn Wiggins, he would, he's OCD, loved the guy. He was a wonderful partner, but he would hire an attorney and then spend days basically telling them what he thought they should be telling him.
We had one of our partners was really detail oriented, and so we developed a pattern of making sure that we were clear on what was in parameters and who was communicating with the attorney. Okay, coming in at mistake number 1, actually over listening to your attorney. And when this happens, it can what could seem like this is a no-brainer, easy win for everybody partnership agreement could turn into a death match rugby game.
Yes, and the thing is you're paying them to tell you about all the risk and how to handle the risk, but you, as the business owner, have to decide which risk you're willing to take to get a deal done and which risks you can't ignore and you have to dig in and actually negotiate on.
Here's the pattern that we found worked for us. Like we would sit down, like just us and just the people on the other side of the table, we would sit down and go through, here's the outcomes we want, and here are the things that we already know might be an issue with the organization. And so once we got that hammered out, just us, we would have almost the same conversation with both of our attorneys present. They got to hear then like the value that we were trying to create, why we wanted to create it, and what was important to us. Then the document began to be generated and batted back and forth. And as it started to get snarled up, because both attorneys are wanting to like really fight for the best protection, best risk management for each client, then we had to come back and make sure that we sat down with our partner and said, okay, look, here's where it's getting snarled. Let's have a heart to heart and figure out what's really important or not. And then go back to the attorneys and have them figure out the wording for it.
Now, one of the things that I know for sure from doing this is you can manage to a startup budget. For instance, when we were starting our venture capital fund, which was really small, so we didn't have a lot of money to work with and spend on legal expenses, I sat down with my lawyer and I said, look, what's the range of cost I can spend on getting these documents done? And it was everything from $20,000 up to some firms spent $250,000. And I said, all right. Yeah, well, but as I dug in a little more, I said, well, why are they paying so much? And he goes, oh my gosh, they go out to their LPs, then their LPs want all these changes, and then you got to send it back to the lawyers, and those hours just add up to a lot of time. And I said, well, okay, I'm not going to negotiate with the LPs. We're going to come up with a generic document. Help me manage the process to spend the $20,000, but you have to act like a good client. It's like, hiring a contact programmer, changing the specs 500 times and then wondering why the bill's so high at the end. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, clarity up front can help reduce costs. And also, the more cooks there are in the kitchen, the more time it takes. The more time it takes, the more it costs.
Yeah, because they charge by the hour and you have to understand their business model and then manage it to where they don't have to spend a lot of time on it. There was a famous story. I worked for the Hunt family, and NB Hunt was in the middle of this negotiation. It was a trust violation. They had a trust suit against him. He had 6 lawyers coming over whose hourly rate added up to, I think, $1,500 an hour. He brought everyone in the office in and he said, these guys are going to come in. You let them do what they do. If you say one joke or make one comment or talk about something that has nothing to do with this lawsuit, I'm firing you on the spot and you're out of here.
That's a pretty clear boundary around time and money.
Absolutely.
Okay, so some key takeaways. Attorneys actually can be a really critical part of your team. But at the end of the day, as a startup founder, you are the one that has to drive your vision forward. And also you're the one that's going to sign the paper, so that you're going to own the risk. Negotiations must be driven by the people making the agreement. Not lawyers first, actually the people who want to live with the agreement afterwards. So outcome first, then dance the risk, the risk with the attorneys, and then go back and make sure that you're in alignment with your desired outcome.
And knowing that they get paid by the hours, learn how to be a good client and use less of their time to get the outcome that you want.
All right, so if you think we missed one of the top 5, or if you have a war story about one of these top 5s, we'd love to hear it in the comments. We read all of them. We respond to them.
Hit that subscribe button, baby.
All right. So long, bootstrappers.
So long. See you next one.